Hey everyone, welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. In the Mobile User Acquisition Show, we talk about how to use mobile user acquisition strategies to grow your app quickly and capital efficiently. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is presented by me, Shamant Rao, mobile growth leader and founder and CEO of the mobile growth consulting firm Rocketship HQ. Each episode includes strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition that you can use to unlock tremendous growth for your app in a sustainable and capital efficient manner. Our guest today is Nadav Ashkenazy, the general manager at Supersonic Studios. Supersonic Studios is a subsidiary company of ironSource and has had 5 games that have hit number one on iTunes at the time of this recording. This, of course, is just a few months after the launch of the studio itself. I'm so excited for today's interview because Nadav pulls back the curtain on the ingredients of a blockbuster launch and goes over the exact process and circumstances that go into a top 10 launch. More importantly, he explains why attaining a top rank on the app stores might not be a worthwhile goal in and of itself. For these and many other insights into what it looks like at the top of the App Store charts, I'm very excited to present today's interview. I'm very excited to welcome Nadav Ashkenazy to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Nadav, I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for hosting me, and I'm super excited to be here as well.
Indeed. Excited to have you because certainly you guys' studio has really hit the top charts on iTunes lately. But I've also certainly worked with your team much before the games were on the horizon. And we are going to dive into and talk about your journey, your process in getting multiple games in the top 10 on iTunes today. You know, you guys have had 5 games that hit number one on iTunes in the US. This is even though it's been just a few months since the studio has launched. What would you say have been some of the key factors that contributed to this?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start and say that hitting the number one is not the goal for us. I more look at it as a result. Hitting the number one mainly means that you manage to get significant amount of installs in probably a shorter time window in a specific country like the US. And I think that the key for succeeding and scaling your titles and getting to number one as a result is in 2 different steps. The first step will be probably to pick the right title to launch. And this is something that we do and focus a lot at the marketability potential of the title. And will we be able to scale this game significantly, of course, profitable once it's out? So this will be the first step. And the second side will be once the game is being published, is being in production, how sophisticated are you in both the creative and the CPI optimizations, 2 important factors that impact the amount of installs that you get. And if you pick the right title, and if you are doing the right choices and optimize correctly both creative and CPI, I think that you should get significant amount of installs and then find yourself number 1 or 2 or 3 or even 7 or whatever it gets. But I think that this is the key.
Yeah, I like what you said about being number one is not necessarily the goal. I also have perspective from 4 or 5 years ago when you could basically buy burst installs. You could hit number one. It would cost you a lot of money, but you could get there, and a lot of games got burnt doing that.
Yeah.
There were certainly horror stories of companies that essentially lost a lot of money on it. So definitely like what you said about it, about just that being almost a byproduct. And certainly we'll dive into some of the other aspects of what you said about picking the right title and making sure it's a foundation for launch. We'll dive into that. But also I would like to spend a little bit of time around just the whole top charts and the dynamics of how they work. Because iTunes has de-emphasized top ranks in favor of editorial content. And in fact, I remember iTunes before 2017 or 2016, the top ranks were fairly clear and up front and center. Now I have to just browse through it, look through it. It's not very clear and obvious as to where the top charts are.
Mm-hmm.
How impactful is the top 10 ranking or the top 1 ranking today compared to what it was before?
Definitely lower. Let's look at it from the organic impact, right? Which is probably one of the most important impact of topping the charts. Used to be a very big reason for growth in organics. And as you said, I think that lately in the last few years, Apple have the top 3 in a much less visible location. And today, when I analyze my organic installs and my K factor, I actually don't think that placing the chart has a significant impact. For sure it has, because for sure some of the users are finding these top 3 and maybe installing accordingly, but definitely not as often as it used to be. And as I look today at organics or K-factor, I look at it mostly from the virality perspective, meaning what we see is that games that have good score, that have good retention, that have good playtime, have a better K factor than others, regardless to their place in the chart. It's more a friend brings a friend, or a friend plays and say, hey, look at this awesome game, why won't you play it as well? Or they sit in class in school and he plays and all the other classmates see the game he played. I think that today, the main ability to get big portion of organics is mainly thanks to the quality of the game and less to the place in the charts. Although I still believe that there is impact. And when we climb in the charts, we see some impact on organics, but not something significant. It's not the biggest motivation for organic installs.
Yeah. And to the extent you're comfortable sharing, would you have a ballpark estimate of how much it has decreased compared to the previous App Store?
I would say that today the K factor is purely from the charts, won't be more than 5% or something similar. The rest 20, 25% or whatever you get, depends on the game. Yeah. I assumed it comes from virality and not from the place in the charts. It used to be 20, 30, 40, 50% increase of organics. It's not the case anymore.
Yeah. No, those are certainly numbers I've seen. And I've certainly seen games that hit like the top 3 in the past, hit like 100,000 just organic installs. And that is definitely not out of the questions per day. And certainly it sounds like that those numbers have been significantly diminished now. You did mention that, the top ranks are not an end in itself, because eventually you're looking at the long-term marketability, the long-term profitability of the game itself. You briefly mentioned there's you evaluate the game before the launch. What does that evaluation process look like? What does the soft launch process look like? And, you said picking the right game is important. How do you decide which game do we push into the top 10?
Yeah, so I would say our sorting process has a few stages. The very first initial stage is just intuition. We are looking at the concept. Probably it's not even a game yet, or maybe it's already a ready game, or maybe only a prototype, or maybe only a video, or maybe only an idea on a doc. But the first filtering is being done manually by intuition of our publishing managers or game designers. And it's mainly according to first market trends. So we're pretty much, and again, we have the experience of being in the industry for 10 years, and we have a pretty broad overview, definitely now when we are testing so many games a day, what works better and what works less. And many times we are able to probably kill or pivot an idea even before spending $1, just according to the look, to the feel, to the alignment with the current market trends, etc. So this will be probably the first sorting, where we are sorting probably half of the ideas pitched to us, and kind of picking the right half that in our eyes has much better probabilities to succeed and scale according to market trends and what we see in the market. The next step that we're doing is we usually start a Facebook test, and just to feel both the CPI from one end and the retention, playtime, and other potential monetization factors on the other hand. And what we're trying to do is we're looking at the overall picture. We understand how marketable the game is, and it's only indication, right? Because we're looking only on Facebook, and it's a limited aspect. We're understanding how marketable, and we are using our own algorithm to kind of convert these results from the initial test into a potential future CPI on scale that we believe we can achieve. And on the other hand, we're looking at the game itself, at the retention and the playtime and the game characteristics, the potential to add rewarded video, and we are kind of estimating the potential LTV of the game. And then we are seeing if we have a game that, in our eyes, can generate significant profit and scale. If yes, we are moving to the next phase, which is the soft launch. And in the soft launch, we're actually converting assumptions into facts. We don't need to assume what will be LTV anymore. We will know now what will be the LTV. Same for, we don't need to assume about marketability based on one test that we're doing. We're probably going to soft launch a few different channels and to look at a few different creatives and much more data. And the soft launch is kind of the final validation for us that our estimation based on the previous stages were right, and this game actually can be profitable and scale. If it is, we are moving into a full global launch, worldwide, Android as well, etc. And our goal, of course, is not to be surprised in the soft launch. My conversion rate that I'm aiming to have is 100%, because every game that I moved to soft launch and I eventually found out that LTV and CPI are not proper like I expected, meaning that my analysis wasn't solid enough, and I need to rethink about my analysis because it's a waste of time, focus, money, not only for me, also for the developer that we're working with, if it's external published app or vice versa. And we want to be as accurate as possible, as early as possible.
Right, that makes sense. So you are iterating on the game, you're looking at the metrics, and you're gradually proving out, actually you're running ads toward the game to see what the metrics are, to see if this can be profitable at scale, right? And once you're past that soft launch phase, you realize, okay, we do want to go big. How do you estimate what sort of download volume you need to hit going out of the gate to basically hit the top 10 or top 3? How do you come up on those estimates?
So what we actually do is we are not trying to estimate what will take us to the top 10. We're trying to estimate and to make sure that we are not spending money that is not needed. So to emphasize it, first of all, once we decide to go into global launch, we are optimizing everything toward profit, not toward the place in the charts. Maybe it will be number 40, maybe it will be number 1.
Okay.
If it is number 1, my risk is that it could have been number 1 for a much better, higher margin, and they pay too much. So what we usually do is, first of all, after the soft launch, we analyze the data, we understand the ARPU, we understand the CPI, we understand the potential. Then we try to understand, okay, let's assume that we are going live uncapped with this CPI. We don't want to get more than, 100K installs a day, because then if you're already top 1, you're already maximized, probably lower CPI, still will put you in the top of the charts, still high scale, but better margin. So we try to understand whether it's going to be too much or not. If we don't think it's going to be too much, we'll continue ahead as planned, optimizing toward our target margin. And if we find ourselves getting too many installs, we are lowering the CPI even further. If not, we're keeping it as is.
And I think that's an important consideration, that you could just get too many installs and you waste your money. I did some work on Words with Friends at one point, and I was talking to the team. Words with Friends was in the top 3 for 45 days. And one reason they did that, they were able to do that, was basically the process you talked about. They were like, how do we make sure we don't overspend? Because they were like, look, we have so much cross promotion that we can go on. And if we just spend 500,000 users today, we'll be in the top 1, but we don't need 500,000. We just need like 100,000. We just need the right amount. And I think that's so important to note. And like I said, Words with Friends, they were like top 3 for like 45 days because of that. They could keep that momentum for much longer. And once you decide, okay, this is how many installs I want to maximize my profits, that can come from paid user acquisition, can come from cross promo, can come from organics. You said, it's far diminished, but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you figure out how does this breakup happen among these 3 sources?
Yeah, so first of all, already in the soft launch, we try to understand, and based on other games, we try to understand the K factor and the organic installs we are getting, and what should we aim in terms of paid installs, and cross promo, we look at it as part of the paid installs, regardless if you are paying money for this or not. It goes through the regular paid ad units and paid campaigns. And so what we are doing is we understand, okay, we want to we believe that 100K is definitely doable for this game. Let's say that we will have 25K coming from organic, 75K. And then we understand, okay, we always start with the strongest channels, both on social and SDK networks. And we usually use the soft launch period in order also to optimize the creative per channel. And then when we go into the global launch, we probably have already the right bid, the right creative set up for all UA channels, so we can get to the very calculated goal we put and hitting the margin goal, which is the most important and challenging things to do in this phase.
Right. And when you say hitting the margin goal, when you're getting like 100K installs a day, you only have D1 or maybe D3 data. So are you having D1, D3 targets based on your soft launch? How are you looking at that?
So in the soft launch, we actually accumulate at least day 7.
Okay.
So sometimes day 14 or more. And in hyper casual specifically, day 7 and day 14 gives you quite a good indication to your LTV. Sometimes it will be a bit better or a bit worse, but once you understand that you have stable data for day 7, let's say, you have some good understanding of your day 30.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a guess, and we try to do it as accurate as possible based on our data. And then what we are doing is once we are optimizing the UA on a daily basis, we are looking at day 0, many times day 1, day 3, but a lot on day 0, because if there is change in trends, we want to react as fast as possible.
Yeah.
If the monetization drops because of X, Y, Z, we don't want to wait until day 3 cohort and find out that we lost money for 4 days. We already want to react on day 0 once we see that day 0 is lower than what we expected.
Yeah. And when you say you do need to react quickly, I imagine that's even more important when you're in the top of the chart, you're getting hundreds of thousands of users. What does the cadence of check-ins look like at that point of time? Are you like meeting every 3 hours, every 6 hours? How do the check-in, what is the check-in process at that time?
So I would say really, I don't know if 24/7, but 18/7, let's say. We have our real-time systems. We are connected. We have alerts, and we're looking carefully for changing trends. Probably we will catch it. Hopefully in the same day it happens. Sometimes in the day after, because usually in the same day it's hard to notice it. Because in the middle of the day, it's hard to understand the full day 0 output that you would have. Yeah. But the morning after, when you have the full day complete, you can easily see the differences that you had from day 0 yesterday comparing to other days. And if we see something that doesn't look good, we are already acting in the morning after. And then, we waste 1 day of unexpected activity, but this is it.
Right. And how do you assess, if day 0 is good, how do you assess the duration for which you should push a game in the charts during the launch phase?
So we are actually from day 0 until we stop the UA, we are always optimizing toward the margin. Right. If the game will stay up in the charts, if we take sort it the game that we launched on beginning of February is an example.
Yeah.
Already 3 or 4 months in the top 50 in the US.
Yeah.
This is not the goal for us. We are optimizing this UA just like we're optimizing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
If the game is marketable and we are doing a good job on the optimization of the CPI and UI and creative, it will stay in the top of the charts for a very long while.
Sure, makes sense. And when we say charting, typically we are referring to the US iTunes charts. How do you think about some of the other geos? Do you just have separate planning or strategy for different geos? Do you have geos by tiers? How do you think about that?
So there are a few geos that we are looking at them independently. US, of course, China, which is a very big market, Japan, which is very unique and high potential market. I would say UK is the same. And these will be countries that will typically look at the actual needs per country. Then we have the other tier, let's call it tier one group of countries from Australia to New Zealand to Germany to Korea and to many other places where we're optimizing according to the tier one abilities. And then we have the tier two, tier three. But we always do it globally, and we put as much attention as the potential of the country for us in terms of revenue and profit.
Sure. That makes sense. And do you notice that Android charts behave very differently from iTunes when you're launching a game?
Not as much, all of the games, all of our games that got to the top in the iOS got to the top in the Android as well.
Yeah.
Some games, again, per game, there is different behavior between Android and iOS. Some games will be very, very successful on Android and only a bit successful on iOS or vice versa, mainly because the type of users is different and the type of execution. Sometimes game that works very, very well on iPhone won't work well or as well on Android device, and maybe this game is a better fit for iPhone and less fit for the Android. So there is definitely differences between Android and iOS per game. But I would say that in general, we treat the Android chart and the iOS chart the same, and we are optimizing both of them the same.
Right. And, after you guys have launched, you guys, decide to go big and you're still optimizing for profits and margins at that stage. Let's assume once an app is out of the launch phase, and you're like, maybe, we don't need to push that hard. You don't need to get to 100K installs every day. It's maybe a couple of weeks. You're in what you might call the post-launch phase. Mm-hmm. What are some of the key UA strategies you look at for your games?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that we're doing in the post-launch phase, first of all, is in Supersonic, we have a title growth manager, which is the owner of the title that is owning both supply and demand, both ad monetization and user acquisition. He is the full owner of the title. So his responsibility is to take this title that was picked and designed and improved in our gaming hub and was served out of many that were tested, saying, hey, this title has the potential to be a big hit. And the job of this title owner, growth manager, is to take this title, which has the great KPIs, and to make it a multi-million dollars hit. And he will be owning everything related to the UA and monetization of this title with the team that support him, of course, from analysts to operations, etc. But what we will do is, and I think that this is what's nice, that it's the same person because he has the full picture. From one end, he can see the LTV performance of the title. He see the ARPDAU, the eCPMs, the impressions per user per ad unit. He can affect the waterfall. He can discuss with different ad networks from Facebook to AdMob to Unity, etc. How to optimize and squeeze the lemon on the LTV side. On the other hand, he's also managing all the UA side on social networks and on SDK networks and optimizing the bids and the creative for each channel. And I think that the fact that it's the same person owning the full business operations of this title is a very, very strong ability for us because he can close the loop much faster and be much more efficient. So if you see that he improves something on the waterfall, and he sees that the ARPDAO and the ACPMs climb, he knows automatically how to increase the CPI to keep the margin and to get even more scale, which we can thanks to the higher LTV, or vice versa. And the fact that he can close the loop so quickly is one of our key elements for managing several hits in the top of the charts.
Right. So you don't have a distinct monetization and UA team. That's a trend I'm starting to see. I don't think it's very widespread yet. That definitely makes sense. And assuming you have multiple channels for a game at scale, how are the channels distributed among the UA team?
What do you mean channel? UA channels? Like how
The UA channels. Yeah.
Yes. So our principle is that we're doing UA in all major channels. We do not skip any of them once launching a game. All the social from Facebook, Google to Snapchat to appstores. What is it?
Sure. I said.
Yeah.
So just to also dig in, you said there's one person in charge of UA and monetization. Is this person managing all the channels, or are the channels divided between a couple of people? How does it work?
He is the owner of all the title. He has operations that he can allocate. He says, okay, I need your support from the operational perspective on the social, and your support on the SDKs, and it really differ between titles because some titles are stronger there and some are stronger there. But he is the owner of everything, all the UA channels, every dollar spent on this title, and earned by this title is under his hat, and he can allocate the resources accordingly between the team, according to the potential of the title and how well it works in each channel.
Yeah, and that seems like such a well-oiled machine for not just for scaling the game that's proven, but everything you talked about is so impressive to me, from the ideation stage to proving it out to soft launch to going big, and of course to continuing to scale. This is definitely one of the things I find very, very impressive about how you guys have executed, and it's certainly not surprising that you guys have hit the top rank for 5 of your games in just a few months. Nadav, this has been incredibly instructive. Thank you for pulling back the curtain behind the hit games that you guys make. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. To wrap, could you tell our listeners how they can find out more about you and the games you guys make?
Yeah, so they can log into our website, supersonic.com. They can contact us if they want to work with us and to get our support on publishing their games, feedback on the game, UA, and everything. We are here. We are planning to keep going. We launched another game yesterday, and we have another 5 launches for the next month. And I expect all of them to top the charts because all of them have the right promising KPIs. And we are always happy to work with the talented game studios, and we believe that Supersonic has a lot to offer. So we are here. We can be contacted via the website, and we are looking forward to a great 2020 full of great games.
Excellent. Yeah, exciting time for you guys. I will look out for those 5 games, and we will certainly link to your website and how other game developers might want to contact you guys. We will link to all of that in the show notes. But for now, it's been an honor having you. Thank you so much, Nadav, for being on the Mobile User Acquisition Show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
For more tips, pointers, and strategies from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition, subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, or check out our blog, rocketship.hq.com/blog. Thank you.